8 financial mistakes that are keeping you stuck, and how to turn the tables today. I'm going to start this video with a disturbing truth. Working hard doesn't guarantee financial prosperity. Sounds crazy, right? Most people do everything right. Wake up early, keep to a schedule, get paid, and still struggle financially. The paradox is this: the more effort you put in without awareness, the more money seems to slip away. And no, the problem isn't how much money comes in. It's what happens between the entry and exit points, in that invisible space where limiting beliefs, automatic financial habits, and emotional decisions govern the game. Here's the controversial part. Intelligent people also make mistakes with money. A lot. Because academic intelligence is not financial intelligence. You can have a degree, experience, and still sabotage your own cash flow every month. What almost no one tells you is that small phrases, quick choices, and just this once build a powerful pattern for good or for chaos. And when this pattern is not questioned, it becomes destiny. But there's good news. You can change that today. Not with magic formulas or empty promises, but with simple, profound, and counterintuitive adjustments. Throughout this video, Napoleon Hill's fundamentals will show you the silent mistakes that drain your money, your peace, and your long-term vision, and how to replace them with a practical, conscious, and applicable abundance mindset for real life. If you've ever felt like you work too hard and make too little progress, stay here, because what you're about to hear doesn't usually appear in superficial content. The invisible cycle that keeps people broken. You've seen this scene hundreds of times, maybe even in your own life. A person works hard, wakes up early, faces traffic, delivers results. And when the paycheck arrives, there's a sigh of relief. Okay, now I can breathe. But 3 or 4 days later, the money disappears. And the feeling isn't just financial, it's emotional. Financial prosperity always seems to slip through your fingers like wet sand. And the most curious thing? Almost no one realizes they're trapped in an invisible cycle, repeated month after month, year after year. This cycle doesn't begin in the wallet, it begins in the mind. People believe the problem is earning too little, when in reality it's the absence of financial intelligence applied to daily life. Without realizing it, they live on autopilot. They receive, they spend, they tighten their belts, they suffer, they promise to change. And they repeat it all again. It's like running on a treadmill thinking you're making progress. There's effort, there's sweat, but no real movement. The flow of money doesn't establish itself because there's no awareness, only reaction. This pattern isn't bad luck, fate, or lack of opportunity. It's a lack of long-term vision. When someone spends their life constantly putting out financial fires, they never build financial freedom, they only survive. And surviving is exhausting, very exhausting. The detail that almost no one notices is that this cycle is fueled by small, seemingly harmless daily decisions. And that's exactly where the turning point lies. Because before changing numbers, it's necessary to question the beliefs that sustain this pattern. And that leads directly to the next point. The fallacy of unquestioned beliefs about money. They learned very early on, perhaps hearing it at home, or on the street, that money isn't that important. It sounds like a beautiful, almost spiritual phrase, but it carries a silent weight. When someone grows up repeating this, they begin to treat money with disdain, as if it were something lesser, unworthy of attention. And then the obvious happens. What is not valued does not last. An abundance mindset never develops because, deep down, there is a disguised rejection. The problem with limiting beliefs is that they operate on autopilot. A person doesn't wake up thinking, "I'm going to sabotage my financial control today," but they do it without realizing it. They complain about money, speak ill of those who prosper, and associate wealth with guilt or arrogance. It sounds harmless, but it's not. This internal narrative creates a toxic relationship with conscious money, where earning more seems wrong and growth generates emotional discomfort. Napoleon Hill, he quickly noticed this pattern. When someone says, "If I had more money, things would be different," but continues to make decisions that confirm the opposite. It's not about having more, it's about thinking differently. Prosperity with wisdom begins when a person questions the phrases they've always repeated without checking if they were true. And when these beliefs begin to crumble, something curious happens. The way of speaking changes, and the impact of words on financial life becomes impossible to ignore. Language, thoughts, and their invisible impact on finances. Napoleon Hill. He often says that most people talk about money as if they were complaining about the weather. "It's not enough. There's nothing left over. This is too expensive for me." It seems like casual conversation, but these phrases accumulate and shape reality. Language is not just communication. It's mental programming. When someone repeats this type of discourse every day, they are training their own brain to see limits, not possibilities. And so, the flow of money begins to block, without the person realizing it. Recurring thoughts act like train tracks. If the mind is always playing the same scarcity movie, it will lead to decisions consistent with that script. The curious thing is that, even when an opportunity arises, the person hesitates, sabotages themselves, or simply doesn't see it. It's like having the door open and still thinking it's locked. Financial discipline doesn't begin with the bank statement. It begins with the internal conversation that no one hears. A simple example helps to clarify. When someone receives their salary already saying, "This won't be enough for anything," the brain goes into impulsive spending mode. Now, when the narrative changes to, "I'm going to make this money work for me," the behavior changes along with it. Hill has seen this happen countless times. Words create direction, and direction creates habit. And habits, when repeated, build financial destiny. But this change in language reveals another, even deeper point: the person's emotional relationship with their own work. Napoleon Hill, over the years, he realized that many people don't hate money. They hate the path they take to earn it. They wake up complaining, spend the day counting minutes, return home exhausted, and even call their own work a punishment. When this happens, something subtle breaks down inside. Personal value begins to mix with frustration. And then, without realizing it, the person associates earning money with suffering, creating a direct block to financial prosperity. It's curious, but it makes sense. If work is seen as something bad, salary becomes a necessary evil, and nobody takes good care of what they see as punishment. Money comes in already marked by complaints and goes out quickly, almost as if it wants to escape. Financial intelligence is compromised because there is no respect for one's own effort. The fruit does not prosper when the tree is despised every day. Napoleon Hill, he often uses a simple analogy. If someone constantly speaks badly of their own body, the body responds with fatigue and illness. The same happens with work. Valuing what you do today, even if it's not your ultimate dream, changes your relationship with your earnings and opens up space for real growth. When that switch flips, the person begins to understand that money doesn't come from chance, but from how they position themselves in relation to their own worth. And this leads to an inevitable question. If money is a result, who is in control? The person or the money? Money as a tool, not as a master. Napoleon Hill, he always warns that the problem is rarely a lack of money, but the place money occupies in a person's mind. Some live in fear of spending even on the basics, while others spend as if there were no tomorrow. Two extremes, same result: imbalance. When money becomes the master, a person begins to live for it, losing financial freedom and clarity. And ironically, the more control they try to exert out of fear, the less financial control they have. Hill he likes to say that money is like energy. It needs to circulate to fulfill its purpose. Saving without criteria generates anxiety. Spending without awareness generates guilt. Neither one works. The turning point happens when you understand that conscious money is a tool for building, not a symbol of power or a source of identity. It serves to make life easier, not to control it. When this becomes clear, decisions begin to become more rational and less emotional. A simple example helps to put this into practice. Before any expense, a person learns to ask themselves, does this bring them closer to or further away from my long-term vision? This question, asked honestly, avoids impulse purchases and strengthens healthy financial habits. Gradually, the relationship with money ceases to be tense and becomes strategic. And when this maturity appears, another need naturally arises: to prepare for the unexpected, because life doesn't warn you when the next crisis is coming. The lack of preparedness for crises, and the price of impulsiveness. Napoleon Hill. It is often said that a crisis is not a maybe, it's a when. Even so, most people live as if the following month were guaranteed, as if nothing could get out of control. The problem isn't just earning little, but spending everything that comes in, always. When there are no reserves, any unforeseen event becomes a tragedy. Financial prosperity cannot withstand constant shocks because it needs a foundation, not improvisation. Impulsive behavior is treacherous because it seems harmless in the moment. An installment payment here, a whim there, and presto, the future has already been compromised without the person realizing it. It feels good now, but it costs a lot later. Without financial discipline, money works for the bank, not for the earner. And when the crisis hits, it only reveals something that has been wrong for a long time. Napoleon Hill. He always teaches a simple rule: pay yourself first. Before spending, setting aside a portion, even a small one, creates emotional and financial protection. 10 rials saved consistently are worth more than 100 saved only once. This habit changes the game because it teaches control, long-term vision, and respect for one's own effort. And when you start preparing for the worst, something curious happens. You gain clarity about what really matters to spend on. And this opens up space for an even deeper topic: financial purpose. Napoleon, he realized that many people don't spend poorly due to a lack of control, but rather a lack of direction. When there's no clear financial purpose, any momentary desire seems justifiable. Money flows in and out without resistance because there's no strong enough why to hold on to it. Without a long-term vision, the mind chooses immediate comfort, and the future becomes an abstraction too distant to contend with. That's why small, seemingly silly decisions accumulate and exact a high price. People trade big dreams for quick pleasures without realizing it. One coffee here, one impulse buy there, and suddenly the month is gone. It's not about the coffee or the purchase itself, it's about the lack of prioritization. Financial intelligence flourishes when someone knows exactly where they want to go. Napoleon, it often suggests something simple yet powerful. Visualize your destination before you accelerate. Having a clear image of what you want, a house, a trip, tranquility, free time, automatically changes your behavior. The brain begins to filter choices more consciously, and when purpose comes into play, spending ceases to be automatic and becomes strategic. This internal alignment prepares the ground for something many ignore: the power of generosity and the circulation of money. Generosity, circulation, and the principle of multiplication. Napoleon, he learned early on that holding on to money out of fear is like holding your breath, hoping to live longer. It may seem like protection, but in practice it suffocates. When money stops circulating, the mind enters a state of scarcity, and financial life hardens. Prosperity with wisdom involves understanding that withholding everything for oneself doesn't create security. It creates tension. The flow of money exists to serve something greater, not to become an emotional prison. The curious thing is that generosity doesn't begin with the amount. It begins with the attitude. There are people who could earn little or much and remain stuck in the same way, because the problem isn't the amount, it's the heart. When money flows with purpose, it multiplies in ways logic can't fully explain. It's not about giving out of guilt or obligation, but about contributing consciously, aligned with one's own values and financial purpose. Napoleon, you've seen this pattern repeat itself countless times. People who start helping, even with small amounts, develop clarity, financial discipline, and more respect for their own money. Conscious giving teaches prioritization, organization, and responsibility. By giving, a person ceases to be merely a consumer and becomes an active participant in the flow of life. And when this understanding matures, the inevitable question arises: how to organize all of this in a practical, simple, and sustainable way in daily life? The 5 practical pillars of a balanced financial life. Napoleon, it often simplifies what many overcomplicate. A healthy financial life rests on 5 clear pillars: earning, saving, spending, investing, and donating. It seems obvious, but most people don't actually do it. The problem isn't a lack of information, it's a lack of structure. Without these pillars organized, money comes in haphazardly and goes out without direction, weakening any attempt at consistent financial prosperity. Earning is about understanding how much money truly comes in, without illusions. Saving is about setting aside money before spending, even if it's a small amount. Spending is about consciously choosing what is essential, without confusing desire with need. Investing is about making your money work for you, even if it's something simple and safe at first. Donating is about keeping the flow alive and your heart aligned. When these pillars work together, financial control ceases to be burdensome and becomes an automatic habit. Napoleon, he always recommends starting simple, writing everything down for 3 months, using less credit, visualizing physical money, leaving your hand. These actions raise awareness and create real financial intelligence. Gradually, the person stops improvising and starts acting strategically. And when this system starts working, something powerful emerges. The realization that knowledge without action changes nothing, and that every transformation requires an unavoidable personal commitment. Napoleon, it always emphasizes that knowledge without application is merely intellectual entertainment. A person can watch dozens of videos, jot down nice phrases, agree with everything, and still remain exactly in the same place. The real turning point happens when you take full responsibility for your own financial life. No excuses, no when I can, no next month. Financial prosperity begins the moment the decision ceases to be emotional and becomes practical. Personal commitment is silent, yet powerful. It doesn't need to be announced, only executed. Choosing 3 financial habits to implement immediately already changes the game. Saving before spending, writing down all expenses, cutting out automatic impulses. Small repeated actions create financial discipline, and discipline creates financial freedom. That's how the abundance mindset moves from discourse to routine. Napoleon Hill, it is often said that life always rewards those who act consciously and with a long-term vision. When someone decides to stop being a spectator and become a protagonist, money ceases to be a constant problem and becomes a strategic tool. And it is precisely at this point that everything connects. Because now it makes sense to look back, organize ideas, and prepare the ground for a message that needs to be heard attentively from the very first second. Now it's up to you. Napoleon. It's often said that information doesn't transform anyone. Decisions do. You've just explored ideas that address an abundance mindset, financial intelligence, and habits that truly change the game. Now comes the uncomfortable, but necessary part. What are you going to do with this information? Are you just going to agree mentally, or are you going to apply it, even if it's just a small step today? Because financial prosperity doesn't happen when everything is perfect. It begins when a person decides to act, even when imperfect. Let me tease you with a few simple but powerful questions. Which of these mistakes do you find yourself making most often? What financial habit do you know you need to change first? Does your money today bring you closer to, or further away from, the life you want to live in 5 years? Thinking about it hurts a little, I know. But that's where growth lives. It's in this discomfort that real financial control and possible financial freedom are born. I challenge you to choose 3 practical actions right now. Not tomorrow. Now. It could be writing down everything you spend, setting aside a small amount to save, cutting out an automatic impulse to spend, or defining a clear financial purpose. Small, repeated decisions build a great life. And when you act consciously, money ceases to be a constant problem and becomes a strategic ally. If this content helped you, made you think, or opened your eyes, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and continue learning how to build prosperity with wisdom, clarity, and balance. And tell me in the comments, what decision will you make today to change your financial life? Because when you declare it, you make a commitment. And when you make a commitment, everything starts to change.